welcome to What's in the Box, episode 10 with Parris Rigby. Today's episode is all about what I would consider Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo. You know, the prison that the most highest criminals go to. Well, I lived in a building in the Design District of Dallas that was originally called 1400 Highline Drive. At some point along this journey, Amly, which is a publicly traded company, purchased this building. I thought by 2014 my life was going to get calmer. I moved into this building because it was supposed to be the highest security. Rob O'Neill, the guy that killed Osama bin Laden, was my neighbor. Michael Hinojosa, the former superintendent of DISD, was my neighbor. Richard Rawlings from Fast and Loud and the bar and grill that he has here, he was my neighbor. I had multiple neighbors, some people I knew for over 2 decades, some people I met then. Actually, one of my dear friends, her mother was the princess to Iran. So we all considered this a very safe, secure building. And after everything I had been through up to this point and having to move out of my previous residence in 45 minutes, we felt this was very secure. Little did I know that I needed to buckle up and hold on. Because these next 3 years, from August of 2014 to September of 2017, were the most tumultuous, torturous, abusive, off the charts, unimaginable experience of my life. I actually did a video in 2017 because I was so fed up with everything. You'll see the video on here. After I came home from a one night away, taking a friend, a dog, and what I came home to. But let's start in 2014. Here I am in August checking into moving into the unit 916 on the 9th floor. I didn't tell anybody that I was moving to that building. I had no idea that one of my dearest friends, Susan Birch, was actually living in that building. But I moved there, as I said, because of the security aspects of it. Ha, what a joke. So I move in in August. The day that I move in, my mom and I are trying to figure out, renter's insurance, because as you will learn, that my renter's insurance was constantly canceled mysteriously, just like my health insurance, just like everything else. So we were getting a renter's insurance as a temporary policy till we could get a hold of Mark Solomon with Goosehead Insurance, and we could figure out what was going on there. Well, during that time, my mom and I spent 2 hours in the lobby, literally trying to get this temporary renter's insurance to move in, and it kept getting canceled. I can only assume one of these assholes was sitting behind the computer just making my life hell. Now knowing the intricacy of how that building, 1400 Highline, was built, and that it was built based on some of the police and firemen funds, and Judson McMillan knows all the intricacies. He was the manager at the time, great guy, witnessed a lot of what happened to me in that building, and he can tell you more. But we finally, after about 2 hours, got through and got a temporary renter's insurance. I move into 914. I'm thinking to myself, whew. I was like, new start. Everything's going to be great. Nobody knows I live here. Well, I soon found out that my friend Susan Birch lived there on the 8th floor. Then I found out about other people like a Richard Rawlings, who I'd met prior to. And I found out about other people, Jasmine, DeLeon, other people, Amira, David, people that lived in the building that I had either been acquaintances with or just new friends. We formed a friend group, but yet I was still targeted. I had no idea what I was going to be in for. About almost immediately after I moved into that building, I went to the 6th floor. On the 6th floor was a beautiful, kind of like a area where you could have a party, beautiful pool, and a lot of people go down there and study or work. I went down there one day, and almost immediately there was a Dallas City Council member. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but boy, do I ever know your face. I know it was the same guy, I feel like, that cut my AT&T wires in 2013 at my previous building, because he carried this book with him, and I recognize a face. I'll tell you more about that later. But immediately I noticed that he took the original maintenance crew, and I have all their names, the original maintenance crew, and took them all out to the 6th floor by the pool, all the way out. Right after that, I knew, I all of a sudden started having, like, the maintenance crew was like painting outside my building or outside my unit, like walls that had already been painted, and they were just hanging out there. I would start coming home to various maintenance members in my unit, which happened all the way till the end of my living experience at this Gitmo. However, things started getting weird. I started feeling sick about 2 months into living there. By October, I noticed that things were a little off. Meaning I would come home and I would notice that like my picture frames were gone, like out of place, because I'm a little OCD and I noticed everything. And also I became like a Walgreens. You want to get water, you want to get a beer, you want to get paper towels. You come to Parris Rigby's unit and you just help yourself. And I noticed that things were missing. So I put in a camera. And I used a private security company. Well, sure enough, in Parris Rigby form, we caught the guy that was the concierge at the front desk. He was in my unit. I only caught him on camera 2 times. One time, there was a Dallas police officer with him who accompanied him. When I found this, I immediately notified Judson McMillan, who was the manager at the time, and Judson notified his, I guess, higher up. And I will never forget, we all went downstairs with the pictures and the images of this individual at the front desk. And the lady who, I can't remember I got her name, but I can't remember it. She was like higher than Judson. She sat there looking at me like this. She was almost stoned cold, like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Well, little did I know at the time that we filed a police report. Nothing happened. He was fired immediately. However, this gentleman, I did not know this until the day that Queen Elizabeth died in September of 2022. But Judson told me at that time that the keys that were put into the doors at what was called Highline at the time all had a computer system, and they would calculate when and how many times and what key was coming in and out. So again, I only thought he came in twice. Judson told me in September of 2022 when I was on speakerphone and Vince Sturgis was my witness that this guy actually came into my unit 6 different times. Judson couldn't tell me that then because I was at the early stages of going into complete trauma. Long story short, after that, I put locks all around every cabinet. I was so tired at that point of being violated, having my stuff missing, people coming into my unit. So I literally went to Home Depot. I was Shay and I went to Home Depot and he was going, why are you buying all these locks? And I said, I was literally locking up every cabinet. And my toothbrush I would lock up because I would come home and some of my face creams would be scooped out and like all over the counter. And it was like they were doing things just to mess with me. I started feeling ill at that time too. Not as ill as I got on the 19th floor, but I started feeling very, very sick. So at that time, by the time that I had those locks on pretty much every cabinet, it was by November of 2015, I think it was, maybe 14, I was completely traumatized. I felt like I lived in a prison and I was completely traumatized. So with that being said, because I'm a tough person and I usually just take things, and at that point I was like, 3 or 4 years into this nightmare. So I was just dealing with it all, filing police reports. By that time we'd been to the FBI Dallas a couple of times. I had called the Secret Service Colorado. I had called the Secret Service Dallas. I had, done it all. So I was just kind of taking the abuse at that time, but trying to figure out how to make it a better space for me and my living environment. So by December of 2015, I could no longer handle looking at locks on every single cabinet. And that was just to keep my stuff from walking out the door, keep my clothes from walking out the door, keep my evidence from walking out the door. It was crazy. It was like living in an insane asylum/jail. So after I reported, as soon as Emily took over, I explained to them that I had to put those locks on all my cabinets because things were missing and this and that. And I already switched out my alarm panel twice by that point. So by that point, they moved me. Emily took over the building. Emily was called Emily Design District, Emily being a publicly traded company. They moved me to the 16th floor. They knew that I had significant evidence proving and witnesses what had been done to me. They moved me to the 19th floor. They did pay for the move, but I moved most of it myself. They reduced my rent, but I don't know if reducing my rent was good or bad because I was still paying a significant amount of money in TXU bills and water bills and in rent. I was paying for my own surveillance and torture because I had no choice. It was becoming worse and worse and worse. My car tampering, when I got to Highline or Emily or Gitmo, became worse and worse and worse. It was almost a daily occurrence. During that time, after we discovered that the guy had come in my front door, or was the guy at the concierge was at my front door, which I do believe that he had been a convicted felon, if I do have my record straight, then Amley nor 1400 Highline did background checks on employees, as well as none of their maintenance people at the time when I was living there were actually certified for in any area of what they were doing as far as keeping up with the maintenance. Again, I started feeling ill. Never been ill in my life. My hair started getting really thin. I started like gaining weight with inflammation, but I didn't know what that was because I'd never been sick. Also backing up 2 weeks, 3 weeks into moving into the 9th floor, my hot water heater exploded. Water goes everywhere. Had to have that all taken care of. It was just a nightmare. So I get to the 19th floor by 2015. And I thought things were going to get better because from the time the guy came in my unit, we caught him on the 9th floor, to the time a couple months after I moved into the 19th floor, the private investigator in which we hired in 2014, really because of the death threats, he really didn't understand technology, but he claimed to be a Navy SEAL, which we soon, through Judson and Rob O'Neill, the real Navy SEAL, we determined that he was not a Navy SEAL. So that was a lie based on that PI. But he lived in the building there as it's like security for me for a short amount of time. So I had about a 6 to 8 month, maybe a year window where I didn't have the home invasions. I was kind of feeling like, okay, things are calm. You know, I was still feeling kind of sick, but it was just calm. The moment that particular man, the PI we hired, moved out of the building, a University of North Texas police officer moved into the building. He went by the name of Kevin Hicks. I don't know that that's his real name, but because one time, and I'll get to this, after I moved out of the building, he called me on my cell phone, not sure he got the number, and it came up something Garza. However, he started showing up and almost targeted me out of nowhere. At that time, my finding the maintenance crew and my unit illegally or unlawfully on ladders was rampant. At that time, my feeling ill was getting worse and worse and worse. The package fraud. Packages would arrive at the front desk in my name that I didn't order. I would have them, they would actually be signed off from the person at the front desk, and then they would actually go to Stacy, one of the assistant managers there, who later was known for selling drugs in the building, and it was reported, and I have a recorded conversation where I reported it to Amley Corporate. I'm not sure anything was done, but an American Airlines pilot had to move out of the building because her highness and her drug abuse and her banging on her door was really too rampant for him, and he couldn't live there anymore. However, being on the 19th floor, things got worse. The first month that I was there, I felt like the inflammation in my body was going down. I felt really good. I was living between two friends, DeLeon and Jasmine, or Mama J. That's where they put me so they could keep an eye on my door and my home invasions and things like that. But by the time I got to the 19th floor, I had an alarm system, I think, for the first little bit, and then I was exhausted by it because at various times, Dallas police officers would show up at my door, and I do have the exact dates they would do this. And I was actually on the phone with Lisa Ledbetter one time and Gary Rugoff on another time. When they would show up at my door and said that I pushed the panic button, well, my alarm system didn't have a panic button, and I think we were on my third alarm system by that point. Finally, after the third time that the Dallas police showed up at my door saying that I pushed a panic button, which I didn't even have one, I decided to take my alarm out. I was like, I'm done. Because not only did I feel guilty that Dallas police, they were coming to a supposed, panic button attack or panic button situation, but there wasn't one. I didn't want them taking their time to spend that time to come to me when it was I don't know how it happened. But also I was just, by that point, I think I was on alarm and a camera number 5, and I was exhausted. I had zero help. I knew that time all of my alarms were all of my accounts, pretty much everybody in the building, James McGee, Michelle M, Amira, Duck, let's see who else, Kelly H, Susan Birch, everybody's stuff was being logged into illegally by the same IP addresses. Their phones were being tampered. Their phones were getting weird numbers in their phones. It was getting back to where I was in the beginning of this in 2013, where it's like you have the COVID virus, but just by looking at somebody, every piece of technology will be affected. And a guy named Latif was in the building too. And it was becoming just starting to blow up again. At that time, I also had my air ducts were blowing out some weird orange dust. I didn't know what it was. So we hired a guy from MIINC to come out and check all of clean all the air ducts out. We hired somebody else, and I'll find his name in a second, to come clean everything out because weird stuff was coming out of the air ducts, and this was a new building. I also had multiple times when I would come home and there would be cigarette butts, and I don't smoke. I've maybe smoked like 3 full cigarettes in my life, but multiple times I would come home and there would be a cigarette butt in my home after a home invasion. I have tons and tons of these. I'm all over the place. And it was just, and also I'd come home sometimes and things would be laying on the floor that weren't there before, because if you know me, you know I'm a little OCD, and I mean everything was beautiful and immaculate. But by 2015, I was coming home and my furniture was being destroyed. It was being keyed. In fact, I had pictures, and if I don't have it in front of me, I'll give it to Domingo and we'll put it on the camera, where my furniture was being keyed. And I had some gorgeous antiques and it was constantly being keyed. I had some high stools, bar stools that Susan Birch gave me, that I came home one day and it was almost like somebody took a pen and they were just like jabbing little holes in it. The headboard to my bed was, and I didn't know if it was pinhole cameras. I didn't know what it was, but there were all these little holes in it. And then my footboard, all these little holes. So they were doing things. They were getting a little bit more aggressive in how to destroy and psychologically traumatize me. I came home that particular day, and one of the things on my locks were always had like ridges and things in them. And this was a new building. This building was built in 2013. By the time I moved in 2014, not all the floors were actually finished being built. So it was a new building. Came home in 2016, and my kitchen outlet, which I didn't have a landline, but all of a sudden there were wires hanging out of it. And it was, I don't know if it was like psychological damage, whatever. There was always typically blood smeared on my walls after a home invasion. As I previously have stated, that the blood was smeared on my car, on the interior roof of my car, pretty bad, after one invasion at Amalie, Getmo, Highline, whatever you want to call it. One of my cats, I had 2 cats at the time, which I'll tell you about one of them in a second. Their little bowl, I came home one day and it was underneath the counter. So you had to go out of your way to crack an antique crystal bowl, to do that. I came home another day and there was a hair wrapped, and I have the toothbrush still, wrapped all inside the toothbrush, so I had to lock those up. I would also come home at various times and there would be this weird, mysterious, like white dots, like white, that was covered up on my walls and on my light fixtures. I had no idea what any of this was. And also I would come home and there would be this weird, like little tiny, I have like an eagle eye. So I got to the point of like my OCD off the charts, noticing everything. And there'd be little tiny, almost what I learned. I don't know if it was a pinhole camera. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was not there before. And it was in various places. Usually by the time I got to the 16th floor, by my shower, there were all these like pinholes, like looking down in my shower. It was getting out of control by the time that I got to the 16th floor. At that same time, I also was starting to contact Amalie Design District to tell them everything that was going on. Every bit of the harassment, the trauma. My mail, as I mentioned earlier, was coming in as K-E-Y, Parris, Rigby from the U.S. Postal Service, but I've already mentioned that. So here are some emails, and we will show these I'll give these to Domingo to show you exactly what was written. But I started writing Amalie, and I started CCing the CEO, every board member in Amalie, because I couldn't figure out what was going on. Not only was I being completely ignored about all my home invasions, which I will also show a picture of smiley faces drawn on the inside of my door on the 4th of July, 2016, as well as some really, sophisticated, by the time I got to the 19th floor and this Kevin Hicks, this police officer, moved in the building, not saying he did this, I'm just saying there's suspicion, the sophistication level in which my home invasions were definitely increased. And remember, I was getting password resets on like every account. Well, they had an active building thing and I was getting password resets on that. So by 2016-17, I was actually leaving notes. I was leaving notes. There's a note right here. I was on my camp because I was tired, and when I knew that whenever I left my home, there was a high probability that I was going to have something or someone inside my home. I have the letter right here. Oh, this is it. So, for example, on Friday, August 25th, 2017, that night before, or maybe 2 nights before, I woke up in the middle of the night to an explosion. My light bulb exploded. Exploded and glass went everywhere. Everywhere. Well, I remember that I came downstairs. So I was leaving my home to go probably make a deposit or to take a deep breath, because by 2016-17 on the 19th floor, the home invasions were almost every time I left. In fact, a detective from Plano DPD or Plano PD told me to take a certain flashlight, and look for shoe marks on my door to see if when they used a bump key, if they were kicking the door. And sure enough, on one of my phones, the phones I had at that time, there was a shoe mark. And I actually sent that picture to the detective in Plano. That's how desperate I got, because I wasn't getting anywhere. And my trauma, and at the time I had arsenic in my body and I didn't realize it. So it was just a complete hit. So on Friday, August 25th, 2017, I left a note on my camera. I didn't have a camera in my home at that point because I was exhausted by cameras. Not only was I setting up cameras that were privately done in the ADT, and then we'd already had the camera at the previous home. You know, the hard drive had been removed. By the time it got to 2017, I was exhausted. I had already set up email after email, private emails, trying to get, keep them out of my stuff. So I just said, "Smile, you're on camera," hoping that that would actually put a fire into the possibility if somebody came into my home, they wouldn't do anything. Oh, hell no. They got brazen enough. This was one of 2 notes that I received from the people or person that was coming in my home. I was going to wave, but I couldn't find it. Ha ha. Hope the lights work for you. In my mind, I went, whoa, 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 whoa. The light exploded the night before. So I went downstairs, and I was just, at this point I was mad, and I just tore into the person at the front desk. I was like, I'm just done with this. Yes, I sent this exact note to Amley Design District, to Amley Corporate. Nothing. On Tuesday, March 7th of 2017, I sent Amley 12 screenshots of different activities that had happened. For example, a package and multiple packages that arrived in my name at this building that I did not order, did not belong to me, had my name on it, and some of the packages were going to some suite, like a totally different unit than I had ever lived in that building. And it was signed off on the front desk, and then it was given to somebody in the office. I believe it was Stacy, the assistant manager in the office. And I walked down there, and I'm like, what are these packages doing? Why are these arriving? They're in my name. I even called, depending on the vendor, whether it was UPS or Postal Service or whoever, to file a complaint. And Stacy acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. The guy at the front desk was like, yeah, I got it, but I gave it to whoever. Now, the policy in the building, and they got lots of packages, was if a package belongs to somebody's name, and they obviously knew who I was in that building, then why didn't they call me and give it to me? Why would they pass it off to somebody in the office when it wasn't even a package I ordered, but it had my name on it? Where I reported all of that. It's all right here. Not only did UPS not do anything, neither did the United States Postal Service. And neither did Amley. This was Amley. They just completely ignored me, as if, that seems to be the key thing here, just ignore me. But this happened multiple times. So here's the package fraud. Then by 2016, after I had had multiple home invasions and going into 2017, I actually called Dallas Police Department and I said, what is going on? Why is no one doing anything? We had taken fingerprints after one home invasion. We had we had a witness on one home invasion. We have a hair sample from one of my home invasions where the idiot left hair. I think he washed his hair because it was short hair. Maybe it's she, but short hair. It was in my sink, and I have it wrapped up in a paper towel. I found somebody's lip liner that was left in my home. I'm assuming maybe fell out of their purse, and I'm sure that had DNA in it because it was used. Nobody would do anything. I had cigarette butts after cigarette butt after cigarette butt. I mean, can't you take DNA off that? Anyway, so I was told that all my police reports were filed. And I have the person at DPD who I talked to that said it was all filed in miscellaneous. Whatever. Now, I will say this. The guy that I did speak to on the phone that day, he was very, very nice. And he did say to me he was shocked. He was surprised because he said, wait a second, these are not miscellaneous. This is like theft and home invasion. And he was reading off the list of things. So I do not blame that officer. I believe that the University of North Texas officer, Kevin Hicks, and whoever his camaraderies were at DPD were the ones that filed it in miscellaneous. Because again, after I was told by Emily, after I sent them a long letter about everything that was happening, that they would help me, then they said, no, contact the University of North Texas, the guy that lived in our building. Contact him for everything. Well, I did. And that's when he went into what I'd consider a full-blown panty twist-off. And he got angry, and it's all in text messaging, and wanted to know those police report numbers and yada, 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 yada. So it kind of gave me a little suspicion. Then here I am again on September 1st, 2017, where they wanted to follow up with one of my conversations that I had with them about what was happening, blown off. And then on September 2nd, 2017, another conversation, and we'll show all these letters on the video. So I finally just said, listen, I came to the following conclusion, and I was at conclusion number 5 is, and I'll just read you the first conclusion was, my family and I are emotionally, physically, financially drained by my experience here at Emily Design District. This has been the absolute worst 3 years of my entire life. And then I summed it up, and you will be able to read every one of these letters. I said, bottom line is, I am tired of living in fear, tired of facing, I said retribution, but I meant retaliation, for following policy and reporting what is happening. I'm tired of Emily employees, Emily Design District, and various parts of corporate lying and attempting to cover up jobs and employing unlicensed maintenance workers to handle electrical issues. The electrical issues at Emily were pretty bad. In fact, Michelle M., who lived on the 11th floor, me, at the time we lived on the 9th floor, I was paying for, when my electrical panel, I have the pictures of it, was paying for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I could not flip the switches. It was paying for it. I couldn't flip the switches. I couldn't do anything to get it to stop. Finally, we called Morley Moss, who is the electrical company that was behind the building of this Emily. Morley Moss employees, or at least 2 of them, came out to my unit as well as Michelle M's. I say Michelle M. because she is a massive victim to all this, and she went into hiding in 2017 because of the extremity of the situation. However, with that being said, 2 employees came out. One had a Morley Moss tag. The other one, who had Chester Cheeto fiery orange hair, who I've seen outside my parents' house on 2 different occasions over the last 5 years, surveillancing, actually worked for AT&T. But he was posing as a Morley Moss employee. I, being fed up and resilient person that I am, I asked for both of their driver's license. I took a picture of both of their driver's license. Michelle and I looked at each other, and I thought, well, you know what? If they're going to kill me, they need to get in line. Because I didn't care. Those driver's licenses are somewhere here, and Michelle M. has a copy of them as well. I called Morley Moss in front of these 2 employees and in front of Michelle, and Morley Moss told me that the Morley Moss employee who came out that day was actually a supervisor. And she was like, he doesn't make calls to actual facilities. So she was concerned about that. And I was actually more concerned about the AT&T employee who posed as a Morley Moss employee, who stood by the electrical panel at Michelle's and was pulling something out of his pocket like this, like reading it. And I thought, that's what made my eyes suspicious, because I thought, if you work for Morley Moss and you actually are, put in all the electrical and stuff, then you know what you're doing. You don't need to read instructions. Well, come to find out, Michelle and I both had major electrical issues after that. It was soon after that, on Monday, September 4th, that I wrote a very long email to Emily, trying to explain to them everything that was happening to me and my family as a basis of living in their place. I was very detailed. You will be seeing every single one of these letters on the video, so you can read them, pause the video, and read. With that being said, I outlined conversations that I had with various Emily employees, both at corporate and in the facility in which I was living, I've never seen so many liars in my entire life. So I started ceasing everybody on the AMLE board, as well as the vice president and the president. I don't know if they ever got it, because I have a feeling the president of AMLE, a publicly traded company, if he knew even one incident of not what only I was claiming, Michelle M. was claiming, but the evidence that we had to back it up, I can promise you, he and his publicly traded investors would be flabbergasted. It's all here. What I was told in return was to talk to Kevin Hicks. I was told to talk to Kevin Hicks, the police officer for the University of North Texas, who creeped me out. I was trying to be very, I grew up, you respect law enforcement. I'm so used to Domingo, Larry Bankston, Russ Crocker, Mark Michaels, Todd Johnson, officers that have been with me for years. So I was, I was trying to be, I guess, nice and follow policy. But I gotta be honest, I was scared to death. I had one long conversation with Kevin when he first got to the building, and that was it. He failed to say he was married. I was like, whatever. He kept contacting me, and the fact that they made me contact him, and then when I was filing police reports for holes drilled in my ceiling, which were a little sophisticated, and other things that happened, and also the fact that I had suspicion that Kevin Hicks, due to the sophistication level of my psychological warfare and the holes drilled in my place and the level of destruction done in my unit when I was gone, was at the highest level of sophistication, which I felt came from Kevin Hicks. Not because he's a police officer, but because I found a camera in one of my speakers. And when you set your glue down, when the glue is set down, a little ring on my wine opener to put the camera in my speaker right above it, I knew that Kevin Hicks and my gut had something to do with it. Because there was a Saturday in 2016 in which I was supposed to go walk a charity event with police officers right after the shoot 'em up in downtown Dallas, and I'm a huge law enforcement supporter, and I was going to go walk on that, and I was on my way home from my parents' house and babysitting my nieces. So I was on my way home, and Kevin called me and goes, "You're not at home." And I thought, how would he know that? Then it was Thanksgiving 2016, and all of a sudden I was debating whether I was going to go to my brother's home for Thanksgiving, and spend time with the family or not, because my home invasions were almost every time I left. So Kevin called me, and I was sitting on my back patio, or I guess not the patio, but the balcony on my bench, and he said, "Why aren't you with your family?" Chills went from head to toe. What I thought to myself was, how in the hell did this man know that I was not at my family's? Then, 4th of July weekend, 2016. My dear and longtime friend, another victim to this situation, Melissa Poe, and one of her friends came to my home, and we were going to go down to the 6th floor to the pool. We did. Well, that day, and you will see the picture on this video, 3 smiley faces drawn on the inside of my door. My door is, of course, unlocked, which I always kept locked. And then there was a rag on my bathroom, bathroom tub, which, if you know me, my place was always immaculate. That would have never been there. However, Kevin called me and said, "Why aren't you down on the 6th floor for the fireworks? Or you can come up to our place." And chills ran through my body. I thought, now how again does this man know why that I'm not there? But he didn't, and also he could say he looked over his balcony from his high-rise, the part of the building that he lived in. However, what gave me the biggest chills was he said he knew I was at home. So it wasn't a matter of why aren't you there because I'm looking over my balcony and I don't see you. It was a matter of why are you at home in your unit? Then I went to the U2 concert in 2017 with Bill Kaufman and Angela Thompson and Joe Antivani, people I've known for a long time. And when I was sitting down in the lobby and I was told you had to clear, you had to use a clear handbag, they didn't make sure nobody had anything bringing them in. So I went upstairs to go switch out my handbags. And when I did, there was a shoe print on my ground that was about the size of Kevin's feet, because I have tiny feet, but I also more or less paid attention to the bottom of his shoe, because the guy walked all over the building. He was creepy as all get out. But anyway, I also, and I can't say for sure, but I was pretty sure that that was his shoe print next to my closet. I took a picture of it. It's on one of my phones, but I was trying to shine a flashlight on it so you could get a good picture. Well, when I came home that night from the U2 concert and I was just walking through the lobby, well, sure enough, so was Kevin Hicks. And all of a sudden, I get on the elevator and Kevin Hicks says, and there was a woman that was going to get on the elevator with her dog. Well, everybody, most people had animals, whether they're meow meows, cats, or dogs in that building. And he pushed the close button on the door, the elevator door, and said, and I was like, why would you do that? Like, let them on the elevator. I'm all, and he said because he hated animals. Well, in 2017, I went to Jackson Hole to bring a dog to one of my longtime friends, and I came home to not only the sophisticated holes drilled in my ceiling and some black, what looked like smudged fingerprints, but a hair sample in my sink. And my animal, Mascara, she was a black cat, had a gash and blood running down her head. All I could think to myself was the sophistication level of the holes drilled in my ceiling and the fact that Kevin told me specifically that he hated animals and wouldn't let that dog on the elevator kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, I'm just telling you like it was. And if Kevin wants to deny anything, you know what? I am a non-attorney, but get me there. I'll get the truth. However, it made me very uncomfortable. So I tested Kevin, and here's how I did it. After the holes drilled, I found a hair sample in my sink. I wrapped it up and a little paper towel and it's tape, and it's in my daily weird shit notes. Jasmine, who is my neighbor, Mama J, she witnessed saw the man leaving my unit. She originally text messaged me on my phone and said she couldn't find Mascara, my cat. But she didn't want to alarm me when she went down there. She went back down there and saw somebody leaving my unit. The description in which she told me matched the appearance of Kevin Hicks. Now, that hair sample from my sink that nobody's been willing to run anything on. Jasmine has now passed away. However, the officer that came to that 911 call, the officer was very, very nice. I do not remember his name. He's in one of my phones as police officer number 2. Domingo was number 1. He was number 2. It got to the point where every time I called the 911, he came to my police reports. It was every police report after Domingo in 2016 to the very last one, which he came and then 2 other people came. But he said to me, he even called me a couple times after a couple of calls and goes, "Are you okay? Are you really okay?" But he had his little body cam on when he was questioning me about the holes drilled in my ceiling, Mascara's gash on her head. We walked down to Mama J's or Jasmine's unit, and she spoke on camera on that body cam and said exactly what I said. Because when I was telling him, I said, Jasmine, my neighbor, witnessed all this. And he got a little nervous. I'm not saying he got nervous because he was involved. What went through my brain, and I could be wrong, was that he was being conditioned to not, he was getting nervous because he knew I was telling the truth and then I had backup telling the truth. I don't know who was behind him because I do believe he was ethical. I think he was being puppeteered. That's just my opinion. But I would love to see that body cam. I don't know how long they keep it. I don't know how long it's been around. But Jasmine's no longer alive. She died of COVID. However, as time went on, I continued to email Emily and let them know what was happening. Let them know how everything was going down. And then they would constantly say, you need to call DPD. You need to call Kevin, yada, yada. Well, when I told Kevin that that I filed 2 police reports with DPD, it was, like I said earlier, it was a full-blown panty twist-off. He got angry with me. Here are all the letters. You will see. You will read them in chronological order. It was getting nuts. I actually, in one letter, described my situation to a Harvey Weinstein, or the gymnastic coach who molested a lot of children, or to Bernie Madoff, where all these instances happened and happened and happened. There was so much evidence, and everybody looked the other way because it was profit over people. Well, now it's time to look into the facts. Actually, It got so bad that at 3:56 p.m. on February 2nd, 2015, Amber Rogers I was with her and I had to immediately leave. And she wrote an affidavit right here saying that I had to immediately leave because I was getting phone calls from my own phone on my phone saying, and I got a phone call from the office at Amalie saying that there was somebody in my unit. This wasn't the first time. I will also tell you that there were multiple ways. I went from death threats from my previous place to what I feel are attempted counts on my life. The belt was removed from my car at Amalie in the parking garage. I ran into a wall. I was poisoned with arsenic over a period of time to where my lymph nodes swelled so bad I had to have dye run through them. And Kenny Jacova, a wonderful man, took me to have that done. I had rashes breaking out. My cat, which you will see these blood reports, actually was also poisoned with arsenic. He drank the water out of the middle bathroom faucet. When I left Amalie, I took 3 water samples. One was from the kitchen, one was from the middle bathroom, and one was from the shower head that had rust coming out of it. These 3 have been in a plastic bag in the dark since 2017. Interesting that the middle faucet, the bathroom faucet, where my cat had the arsenic, drank the water, look, there's no water here. But this white stuff right here, what is that? Because there were rings all around my faucets that I took pictures of. You know, I was poisoned with arsenic. And it was while I lived at Amalie. And my first blood report, when we actually tested for heavy metals, said 15 out of 21, I think it was. But I do believe that my levels of arsenic would have been much higher if we would have known and taken the arsenic blood reports way back when my lymph nodes were swelling up like golf balls and I'd have dye run through them to see if they were cancer. So anybody that tells me that arsenic's in your food, or that arsenic's, you know, something that's everywhere, let me tell you, I was sick as a dog, and I believe that I would have been at the toxic level if we would have known to test for arsenic when my lymph nodes were so swollen and my eyes were bloodshot, or I had all the rashes on me. But we didn't know. It took me hiring an environmentalist and sitting down and being just diligent as all get out and wanting to live. So, Amalie, you're responsible for this. And I have a feeling I know exactly what day that the tablets were put into my hot water heater. It's in my daily weird shit notes. And James, you, the maintenance guy, one of the maintenance guys, totally involved in everything. I believe that pickup truck that he was awarded towards the end of his stay and the end of my stay, you know, so was Ralph Hines of Plano Independent School District, the athletic director. Seems to be you get a new car if you with Parris. So while my stay at Amalie Design District, 1400 Highline, aka Getmo, Guantanamo Bay, I was not only being stalked by this gang stalking, I was being stalked by the U.S. Postal Service. I was being stalked by somebody named Lorenzo and his, I guess, female friend who would leave notes on my door almost every day for about a year. And it was, at first I thought, oh, you know, I was totally full of arsenic and completely drowning in trauma. I just didn't see it. But these notes, as I read them, they became something that was almost like a, you know, a premeditation of what's here's going to happen to you today or what just had happened to me. And it became things like know your limitations and defy them. And it's from it says Concierge Lorenzo. I never met a Lorenzo. So I bet you Amalie would have been shocked to know that somebody named Lorenzo and some female were leaving notes on my door I dated every one of them. It says if plan A didn't work, the alphabet has 25 more letters. Stay cool. I mean, and if you knew what was happening and you read my daily weird shit notes, then you would look at the dates on these and you'd go, that's a little creepy, because it felt as though it was something that wasn't like a, you know, we're going to cheer you up. It felt like something that had to do with what happened that day, because this was the worst 3 years of my life. And I dated every one of them. So they're all here. So Amalie, to all your employees, leave notes and have an idea of what kind of home invasion or car tampering or gas smell or, you know, is going to happen, or financial fraud is going to happen that day. Lorenzo sure did. Why hasn't he been questioned? Here are all the notes. So that was something that creeped me out. And I never told anybody, never filed a police report on it because what good would it do at the time? Okay, so we're going to talk about car tampering. The car tampering in Amalie Design District got worse and worse and worse and worse. While I lived there, I not only had blood smeared all the interior of my car, which you will see a picture of that on this podcast, I had the door. I walked out one day and the door handle, the driver's side door handle, was in my passenger seat. Now the passenger's door handle ended up coming off, but a friend of mine from high school did that. He didn't mean to. I had flat tires all the time. I had, cigarette butts found in my car. I actually found a bean burrito wrapper in my car one time. The lights were on all the time. There was just tons of stuff that happened in my car. Flat tire after flat tire after flat tire. The spare tire was actually removed from my car at one point. Now we're going to get to the gas smell. So while I lived at Amalie Design District, more than once, I was the greatest person in the world to wake up to this gas smell. This smell would wake me up out of an Ambien sleep. At that time, I was taking Ambien because I couldn't sleep because I was didn't know what was going to happen that night. Not only here, I recorded it one time, and I think I recorded it more than once, but I'll have to check, of this gas smell. I also was the luckiest person in the world that I woke up in 2017 to firemen banging on my door on the 19th floor saying that they had received a call from another residence that there was gas coming from my unit. And of course they came in there and they couldn't find it, but here's the recording from
this situation, and they
August
haven't done
3rd.
anything. But because my
This is the front desk.
A different way in my report, and so good. The maintenance is going to her as well. Okay, wonderful. Because, there are 2 or 3 other residents that have evidently put in work order after work order over this smell, this situation, and they haven't done anything. But because my work orders for my electrical issue have disappeared, I'm now being very documentary. It's causing me headaches, eyes burning. Literally, I woke up in a deep sleep with this. So my concern is, I know Brad's new, but my concern is maybe he'll. I don't know. Anyway, I really appreciate all your help. I'm moving out here pretty soon anyway. I can't handle this anymore. It's like our health. You can't buy your.
Yeah, I get migraines, so I understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and my microwave hasn't worked in 9 months. Those are some of the work orders that have disappeared. So, all right. Well,
I'm putting that in my report too. Everything you're telling me, I'm typing it out.
Okay, yeah. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just when it comes to your health.
Not at all. Yeah.
I take pictures of stuff. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and my electrical panel it's showing that I have 2 bedrooms. It's got energy or electrics going to 2 bedroom, 2 bathrooms, 2 AC units. Tell me that's not something that's screwed up.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And my bills have been out of control. So between all, I'm just something. I'm not saying something's just not right, but this smell is so bad right now. Ugh.
A few minutes, I think.
I open my back door. It's just I'm so tired of this. This happens probably every few days, but never this bad in the middle of the night. My throat's burning.
Have you spoken to him about it, or you only put in work orders?
No, the gas smell, I've just documented it on my own. I just figured when I put in work orders for the last 9 months about my microwave that's not working, and that they've told me, and even maintenance has written notes to me saying this is an electrical issue and they haven't fixed it. And when I went downstairs and they said that those work orders they don't have, they just mysteriously left the system. That's not what they said, but they said that they can't find my work orders. Then I figured if I put in a work order for these horrible smells, I have my electrical panel is saying that I live in a 2-bedroom, 2 bathroom, and I have 2 AC units. That's what electricity is going to in my unit.
Yeah.
So I figured but other people in this building have put in work order after work order after work order over this gassy smell because it's causing my body's inflamed. Another tenant is having health issues, headache, inflammation, the whole shebang. And so this is the first time I've ever called downstairs on this because I figured, what are they going to do about a gas smell if they're not going to, take my electrical situation, my microwave, for example.
I was wondering because I had never heard anything about a gas smell from anyone.
Yeah, because the person that told me that she's been putting in the work orders, we just had this conversation a couple of days ago. Then, but this is my first time, like I said, only because if I'm putting in work orders for electrical issues and those mysteriously disappear, you think they're going to take me serious over this? No.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm gonna.
So my eyes are burning so bad. It's horrible. But now I realize why I'm having these headaches. I'm burning all the time. I've never. All right.
But you pay too much for rent for that.
My electric bills, and I have 2 AC units and 2 bedroom, 2 bath. I mean, really? That shouldn't be that way on the electrical panel either. But whatever, that's a different issue. All right. Well, I appreciate your help. I just wanted to make sure that I called downstairs and let you know, because I woke up about 4:20 and it's now 5:20, and I originally called you about 30 minutes ago the first time. So I just kind of figured, since my work orders disappeared, maybe somebody might take forever to get up here, just because then they can claim they didn't smell it. I'm sorry. I'm just it's so frustrating, this situation.
It's okay. I called Brad. It was 4:58 when I called. And you caught me at 4:56.
Actually, let me look at my phone.
So I recorded other messages that I would call downstairs and report. And I sound like I'd been drinking. I sound stopped up. I had done none of the above. I barely left my home. I was so ill from the arsenic, the rashes, the trauma, the high stress of living in a place where I didn't know if I got in my car, what was going to be done next to it. I didn't know if my animals were going to be abused again. I didn't know what holes were going to be drilled in my ceiling, and were they going to have microphones and speakers or cameras. I woke up in the middle of the night multiple times to a gas smell, to the point where, again, I'm going to say in 2017, police or firemen in the middle of the night, and this was the middle of the night, woke me up because there was gas coming from my unit. I have another video, which you will see on this podcast, of me when I came home from Jackson Hole, Wyoming in 2017, and how I was trying not to break down. I did everything that I was supposed to do as a resident. I filed reports with the U.S. Postal Service. I filed reports with UPS. I filed reports with AMLE. I filed reports with the ultimate creep, who I think was involved and compensated, Kevin Hicks. That's probably not his name. I also reported with DPD, and it's not DPD's fault. It was out of control. Then I was actually asked to leave AMLE Design District, to move out. They had no rhyme, reason, or anything. I hadn't done anything. All I had done was report what was happening to me. And I guess through all of my emails, I reported that they illegally evicted me from AMLE Design District. I contacted a real estate attorney, but yet I was too ill because I was vomiting. My eyes are bloodshot. You will see pictures. I had rashes. You will see pictures on this podcast. I was also traumatized from the home invasions. I couldn't do anything. All I had to do was go to my parents' house, and I would cough up. I started coughing up a little blood. That's all I could do. AMLE did nothing, and I have multiple recorded conversations with them. During my stay at AMLE Design District, 1400 Highline, aka Guantanamo Bay, this was not my original alarm panel. This was an alarm panel that was put into my home by my private alarm guy. We were on alarm number 4. I came home one day after one of my home invasions, and I have an eagle eye. I notice, I don't want to say everything, but I notice a lot. I'm a little OCD. The base, which you can see now, is this base, but it was a base that went from here all the way around. And I came home one day and I said, wait a second. Even though I could unset my alarm, the base had changed. That's how much of an eagle eye I had. And I called my mom and told her. Of course, I don't know if my mom understood what I was saying, and I was probably talking fast because my anxiety was high. So this alarm panel right here is the last alarm that I had, because after the panel was switched out and my alarm guy came to my house and we were downloaded all the, like the inputs, the outputs and everything, and old Parris Rigby I'm not a detective, but I'm a little detective when it comes to me, and I was OCD. I kept every single receipt. And remember, in one of my previous podcasts, I mentioned that every time I'd go somewhere, I'd purposely get a Diet Coke or purposely get French fries or purposely go through a drive-thru just for a timestamp of where I was. So when my alarm guy, this private alarm guy, came to my home, we were comparing the set alarm, unset alarms, set alarm, unset alarms to receipts that I had. And I could prove that I, Parris Rigby, was not the one unsetting and setting my alarm. So that's why after this, I was like, I'm done with alarms. I'm sick of paying for them. I'm sick of all of it. That's why you saw that letter earlier. I also want to tell you that if you're the lucky, lucky resident of an AMLE building, especially AMLE Design District, you will put in work order after work order after work order for electrical issues, light bulbs exploding in the middle of the night, for a microwave that didn't work for 9 months, for refrigerators that went out, for arsenic poisoning through your water. This one had no water left in it. And guess what? Your maintenance orders will be ignored. They will be ignored over and over and over again. They will leave the system, and unless you have nothing else to do with your time but to sit down and try to get your life back, you would never write everything down, work order, print it out, and do everything that I did. But it became ridiculous. I couldn't get my microwave working for 9 months. My refrigerator was broken half the time. The AC was out. The water heater was exploding. And the work orders that I put in. But you know what was funny? Not really. I'm being sarcastic. I came home more than once, and I can tell you the maintenance guys that were in my unit on ladders. And they weren't supposed to be. Again, I mentioned a woman that worked at the front desk, and her husband at the time was a Dallas police officer, and she sent me a Christmas card and asked me to come down to get it, which, you know, I used to send cards out too, but I didn't know her that well. But the moment I turned around and walked upstairs, she called somebody. I want her subpoenaed, and I want to know who she was reporting to. Was it one of the 2 city council members? Was it this guy that drives a brown truck who's greasy as all get out? Who was she reporting to? Was it Cheryl Rios? Because she was reporting to somebody. I also want to say that the last 6 months of me living at AMLE Design District, we changed my locks so many times, because remember, we started changing my locks in 2013. So many times, including the lock to my mailbox, because I started getting weird stuff in the mailbox, and I would call the post office and I'd say, hey, what's this? And they go, we don't know what that is. That I started writing the words old, new, old, and then I would write new. And the keys, these are all the keys. All these keys right here were all the keys from, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times minimum of 8 times that I had to change my locks in the last 6 months of living at AMLE Design District on the 19th floor. Now, I was asked to leave. I didn't do anything. I was the one that was paying for my torture, paying for the abuse, paying for the retaliation, paying for the psychological warfare, and I did everything right. I'm not perfect, but I reported everything. And I'm the one that was asked to leave. AMLE alone for that should be sued, because I contacted an attorney and I have all the notes, and they said that I was absolutely wrongfully asked to leave. The manager at the time, her name, hold on, she tried to befriend me. Let me find it here. I guess people think I'm stupid. Hold on. I have her name. She sent me a card. Well, I have her cards. We will show her card. She wrote me a thank you note. She needs to be subpoenaed. That woman, I went downstairs to ask questions, and she was recording my conversations, and I know she was. I didn't care at that point. We will show her card on. She wrote me a nice little card like, oh, yeah. but she needs to be subpoenaed. I believe she was compensated for the demise. I mean, who lives in one of the nicest high rises supposedly in Dallas and gets this? Arsenic poisoning, car tampering, maintenance men in your room, in your home when you're not supposed to, your furniture torn up. I just want to show you pictures of my furniture. You get your animals abused. You get, oh, my Wi-Fi. Wow, this is a good one. When I first moved into Amley Design District in 2014, I got 2 credit scores. The same day AT&T sent me my credit scores saying that I didn't qualify, and they were completely different things. It was like it was a false identity of me. And so I had to put my Wi-Fi under Paige Hamilton and other alias names just to try and attempt to keep them out of my stuff. I can actually prove to law enforcement a time when my computer was utilized. And I wasn't there. I was with Todd Leverage at the Ice House in Plano for, I think it was Tanya Sewell's birthday party. And I can prove that I was there. There were pictures taken. But that timestamp of when you were in my home, when somebody was in my home using my Google Chromebook, I can prove I wasn't there. That's part of it as well. Living at Highline, Amley Design District, I don't care if there's statute of limitations. I did everything right. And I'm going to hope there's a federal judge that wants to speak to me, speak to Domingo, speak to somebody. Because I have been done wrong in so many ways that I've done over 50 hours of hypnotherapy to get through the trauma of what I've lived. And this morning, I had a lot of anxiety in uncovering all this, and I have a lip liner that was uncovered that was left in my home as well. And I think at the minimum, you're a publicly traded company. I tried to contact the CEO. I did everything right. I sent email after email. I actually compared this situation to Harvey Weinstein, the gymnastics coach, and to Bernie Madoff. I hope that this makes a change. Because what happened to me, being stalked by one of your employees, my furniture destroyed, my car destroyed, my mental health diminishing. It is of my belief, and I've had people in law enforcement tell me, that while my stay at Amley Design District, I was supposed to die multiple ways. Car belt removed. The yellow spider that was mysteriously found that stung me, that I have a witness from. The arsenic poisoning. Just psychological warfare on its own. Is that how you treat your residents? And not only did you ask me to leave and I didn't do anything wrong, all I did was report what was happening and to accept packages and mail fraud. Also, besides asking me to leave, you don't even have your maintenance men were not even didn't have any kind of credentials to do what they were doing, but they were in my place. And how many units are 1 bedroom but they're paying for a 2-bedroom? Come on. You're publicly traded. Do your investors want to know all this? Because I got all the evidence. How about all the reviews about Amley Design District? I think gas stations get better reviews than this. It's horrible. But I can say this, that I documented everything. Anybody wants to see anything. You also had me down as I was paying for a storage facility at Amley, which I've never had a storage facility at Amley. You also had me down for 2 toll tags. I mean, I know over the years, it's amazing that I'm still here living because I was totally raped financially, emotionally, psychologically, and every other way by your employees and your facility. And there's ample amount of evidence for that. From the first maintenance crew to your man at the front desk. I hope that this podcast alone starts a change. It's not fair to wake up in the middle of the night, stopped up to gas smells, and have the fire department bang on your door. It's not fair to have the device in my closet that belonged to AT&T, imagine that, come after that last flood in the 19th floor, look completely different. And I had pictures of it. And I actually asked my neighbors if their AT&T device looked like that. I'm curious as to what was running through there. And how much due diligence do you do on your officers? Because every officer that I know, outside of that Kevin Hicks, are amazing. They go out of their way to do what they can. What are you doing? Do your investors know that you're really not doing anything to provide your maintenance with certain certifications? You're not doing any due diligence on your security in the building. And is this how you want your corporate to teach? Because I've got recorded conversations because, you know, your assistant manager, the assistant manager, Emily Design Director Stacy, was selling drugs and so high on drugs in the building that she actually, American Airlines pilot, moved out. How about the maintenance guy that you moved to after the gun went off on the 9th floor, and I've got the picture of that where the bullet went off in the middle of the hallway, and I have a witness to it too, that you just, you know how you handled things? You just transferred them to the Richardson location. I tried to contact the CEO. All I can say is nothing was done right. I survived that, and I shouldn't have. I should have been, it would appear as though I suicided, but I survived. This was an emotional one for me, and I'm glad that I was able to keep it together. But I'm going to hope that somebody is going to subpoena, question every maintenance crew, including the very first crew, including the manager who I know was involved, including the officer. Because Kevin Hicks, if that's your real name, you're a detriment to society. You creeped me out worse than anybody. And I would love to speak to your ex-wife if she's still alive. Is she on drugs? Because she sure looked like it. And you were selling her, and Kevin Hicks, this officer in the building, was selling her shoes like it was bizarre. The whole thing. I'm saying that these people in this situation is a detriment to not only Parris Rigby, but to society. And I no longer have my fur babies because of this situation. I couldn't protect them from the home invasions. You'll see video after video on this podcast of what I did and what I collected. And recordings with your maintenance crew or your corporate people. Say a prayer that I'll be vindicated and I'll have a life. But until then, I want to thank Domingo and all the men and women in blue that have worked tirelessly for everybody, including myself. See you next time. Get your popcorn ready. Yay, yay. That's all I can say.